So, the number one question people seem to have about a moving sale or selling everything you own is how do you come up with the prices? How do you know what to ask for things? How do you decide where to sell things? Should you sell it on Marketplace, Craigslist, a moving sale, things like that? Should you do an estate sale or a moving sale? I'm just going to share how we kind of came to those decisions, what our philosophy was, and how we made those different choices. So, our first things that we sold began a year ago, and we started everything that I could possibly put on eBay or Poshmark. I began searching through our home at that point. Things that were small, easily searchable, things like electronics that were specific model numbers, collectibles, clothing that was name brand, shoes that were name brand, things like that. What I would do is we would take pictures, clean the items up, post them. I would do this in batches, and I would go through and gather over a period of time everything that I knew I was wanting to sell coming up. And then I would photograph them, write down sizes, measurements, anything that was important, just on a sheet of paper on a notebook, nothing super fancy. And then I would take pictures of them. I would often go to my computer. I would search for that item, or on my phone, search for that item. Find one that's already sold. What you do for that is you go to the sold listings, and that way you can see what the actual prices are that things are selling at, not some of these prices that are out there that have not sold. You want to know what the actual selling price is. So at that point, what I would do is I would find the item. You can click a little section that says list or sell an item like this. I would sell one like this. I would create a draft. If I was on my computer and I could easily type up any information that was special to our item, I would go ahead and do that right away then. If I happen to have my phone in my hand and I was taking pictures, I would take pictures right then and add them to the listing. What often happened was late at night, when I had a little extra time and the house was quiet, I could sit and search and find the different listings on eBay. I'd look at my list and know what I was selling, or look through my phone and see the pictures. I would go through and find those items, and item by item, I would save a draft. I would put the price in right then and the shipping cost in. That way I knew immediately later when I would go back and find it, I didn't have to search that again to find what the asking price was for that item. Then later on my phone, I would pull up my drafts. I would find the listing and I would simply attach the photos to it. This sounds complicated, but it was really simple. Once you have the eBay app or you're on your website from your desktop computer, you can then simply go between the listings and just keep saving them as a draft until you're sure you have all the information as you want it. So that is what I did for a ton of stuff. We made thousands of dollars this way. We started a year ago, so 15, 16 months before we were ready to go. At that point then, I had listings going all the time for eBay. I would, if I wasn't sure what the pricing is, if I had time, I would price a little on the higher side of things, especially if they were in good condition. I learned my lesson a few times when I priced things based on the lower ones and didn't read their description properly, and then later was realizing maybe they were missing a part or a piece. And then something would sell within like 10 minutes. And I'm like, I priced that a little too low. Other times we were completely okay selling it for cheap because we just wanted it out. So that's what we did for eBay. Poshmark is very similar. This was a lot of clothing, nice name brand things, dress clothes, athletic wear, things like that. Next up, what I started doing was back in the fall, anything that was for the holidays, I jumped into marketing mode for that. whether it was on my Etsy site, eBay, and then this is when we started incorporating in Marketplace or Craigslist. Things that we knew people might be looking for before the holidays. This included things like a log splitter, not something necessarily holiday related, but things that we knew people would want over the winter. So we tried to split every bit of wood that we needed that for as quick as possible so that we could get that sold for the highest possible asking price. There's certain things, like we just sold our tiller a couple days ago. We waited on that until spring when we knew people would be looking for a tiller for their garden and excited and ready to spend money on that. For Marketplace, if things were like $20 or less, we would just say porch pickup and we'd tell them where to leave the money. We also sold a lot of canning supplies, a canner, things like that on Marketplace, and made hundreds of dollars in the fall when people were finishing up their crops, their apples, things like that. When it came to garage sale pricing, I chose with this exact scenario to just really simplify. So for clothing, we basically did $1 per item, unless it was specially marked, but we kind of surrendered at this point. Many of these things were things we had tried to sell on Poshmark, or we simply were okay with letting them go for $1. We kind of weighed the amount of work it takes to price every single, piece of clothing. And so we just had a big sign that said $1 each. And I think that helped more clothing move as well during the sale. But I never personally look at clothing as a big seller for me. But there are, when someone finds the right size or the right style, they'll tend to buy a lot. So that was really fantastic. Otherwise, if it's something almost brand new that would sell for $50 in the store, I would price it for around like $10 to $15. If it's something that's in really high demand and I know that somebody would really be going to the store that day and searching for that item and they'd be okay, I might sell for $20, maybe $30. And it's item by item. For a lot of home decor, kitchenware, pots, silverware, things like that, I priced to sell. We had some fantastic serving bowls, Pyrex, different things like that I had looked online and I weighed selling. Some of it I did sell on eBay, some old Pyrex. Things that were still left, I would price for around $5. Now, we're in the Midwest. If you're on the coast, you could probably get more. For us, that seemed to be the sweet spot, is around $5. If I had a set of things, maybe a little more. A lot of things were $1. Some spatulas and things were $0.25. I wanted them to move. We knew I had already let my daughter go through them. I knew we weren't wanting to hold on to any of this. So for kitchen things, we priced it to move. Now for furniture, benches, chairs, couches, both of our couches were in very good usable condition, kept in good places. They were nice, except they were around like 15 to 20 years old. So at that point, we just offered them for free. Nobody ended up taking them, so we're just having to dispose of them. One is a beautiful leather couch. I was still hoping someone at a minimum would love to cut the leather off of that and use it. But it is what it is. I had to surrender on that hope for it. Coffee tables, side tables all went for around $10 to $30 each. There was a few things, hutches and shelving things that went for around $30 or $40 each. We had some big rugs that went for $10 to $20 that were we had like a really beautiful Turkish rug that in a normal scenario would be worth probably hundreds, that we sold to some guy for $10. We just wanted to see it get used. It had like pet stains from years before and we had steam cleaned it, but it's still like on the backside showed through. So the way he was going to use it in a garage was perfect. So we were happy to see it go. Electronics and guy stuff. One of the hardest things we weren't exactly sure how to price was all of the garage stuff. So what we ended up doing was the bigger things, the drill press, the table saw, chainsaws, all of those were priced anywhere from $50, $100, $150, even up to $250 each. Our big work table that goes in the garage sold for $500, and that person bought like $1,500 worth of stuff, I think. So that was amazing. Just a lot of big tools that we would never sell if we weren't moving abroad, because they're things that you would use with a workshop. Now, other things we had, like plumbing supplies, like a tote of that, or a big drawer full of sandpaper of all sorts. Spray paints we put for 50 cents to $1 each. A whole thing full of screws and drills. I think we had $10 for the whole little tiny tote of it. My husband sold this whole tool chest thing for $50. I think it was another 15 or 20 for this metal cabinet he had used in the garage to hold the spray paints and things. So that what we found is it wasn't, the big things made sense to price individually. Other things we tried to just group together. And for the most part, I think the guys appreciated that. We had a lot of men show up at our sale. And part of how they knew about it was the way that I wrote it up in the listing. So I'll talk about that later. Just so they knew. I shared photos of it. They could tell there was something at the sale for them. And it saved us a ton of time. My husband's still working full time. He did not have time to go through every item and individually price. So we kind of made a mental decision that unless it was like $10 or more, it wasn't worth every knob and hinge and everything being priced. So we would just batch them together. Sets of knobs, sets of hinges, random metal parts would just be put into boxes together and just priced. A couple things we had make offer on. So let's rewind a little bit. One of the biggest things is we first set a date for this moving sale. We did 3 days, 8 a.m. until 7 p.m., which were long days. However, my husband took off work. Our son was here. We had our daughter come one day and help us. We were in it. The weather turned out nice. We did it the first weekend we could, which was the very last weekend of April into May 1st and 2nd. And that was key. People were really excited to get out. It's been really cold here. So we had a huge turnout for this sale. The second thing is 2 weeks ahead of time, I put an ad on Craigslist and on Facebook. So I went onto my husband's Facebook, put it in a few of the buy groups, the local groups. And I just didn't put our address. I said address will be added later. Huge moving sale. And I started a list of things, benches, tools. I listed the car that's not it did sell, but it's not included in our total here. And lawnmower, clothing, electronics, books, anything I could think of that somebody might be looking for, clamps, antique saws, things like that. And I started with just the pictures I had, which was a very basic picture of what we had started setting up and nothing else. But it got something, at least a listing for people that were looking ahead of time. They could kind of keep an eye on it. And then every few days, I would go back into those listings and add more photos as I had them. The next big things was we had really good signs. All of our signs matched. They were about 2 feet by 2 feet each, bright green with black lettering. Now, my marketing brain wants to share this with you. When you're doing a sale sign, you need to have very clear letters. Have your signs look different than every other sign. The generic signs don't make people excited. You just assume it's going to be a couple tables in a garage. You want signs that someone put some effort into. We had plywood signs, good, strong, iron stands, and all of the signs matched. Now, the next key was, for me, I do both sides of the sign so the arrows point the same direction, so that way when setup day comes, they can go, you're not wondering which signs were left signs, which signs were right-facing signs. You can just use them interchangeably, and that saves a ton of stress on the day of. I took a photo of that sign, and that was our main image in some of the garage sale postings. That way, that saved us because somehow Facebook was telling people the wrong location, but they saw our signs and knew to follow them. So put the photo of your signs and make your signs unique. If you have all orange signs or all pink signs, whatever it is, people will look for that sign when they're coming to your sale. The next thing is, like I said, list out everything you can think of in these ads. Craigslist would only let us list a couple weeks ahead of time. So that Sunday night, 2 weeks prior, I created the listing. Facebook, I just did one major group and created an event. And then about 5 days ahead of time, I went in and added to all the other local groups. Keep taking photos as you keep setting things up. Keep taking photos and keep uploading them and updating these different listings. I know that people are checking back in and seeing more photos, better photos, more things updated on the listings, and that helped us. The day of, if possible, have as much stuff set up ahead of time as you can. Still, our sale did not open till 8. We had people lined up here by 7:30. So just be prepared the minute that sign's in the ground. My husband went out at about 7 and started putting them in. And I knew when that last sign went in at the end of our driveway that there was going to be cars, and sure enough, there were cars. So have a cash box ready. We had about $200 to $250 in 20s, 10s, 1s, 5s, and we just had a little dish of quarters. We did not price anything lower than a quarter or in increments of quarters. And I had people come to the sale that said they didn't do anything other than dollars, flat dollars. So that's your choice. For us, the quarters, I do think, added up. So I'm glad that we did that. But no dimes, no nickels, any of that stuff. Welcome to inflation, right? So having the money ready, and I would put it like in our back door until I was absolutely ready and ready to sit down at that table. Then I would go grab it and put it by me. Anytime that we had more than like 4 or 5 $20 bills in that container or that bin, I would take them out and I'd put them somewhere safe. So I never felt like there was tons of money just sitting out in the garage. Then for setup, have a meal plan ready for that weekend. We made sure we had easy foods that we can make. We had 3 of us, so we could kind of take turns if we needed to. We had drinks planned. Just be prepared. Know that you're not going to have a lot of energy. Each night we would finish at 7 o'clock. We'd close it down. We'd bring in some things that we had to. Get everything ready. We'd come in. We'd count our money for the day, sort it out, put another couple $100 back in the box to start the next day. And we were all passed out by like 9:30 each night. We were so tired. So just give yourself grace, plan ahead, and know that you're going to be exhausted. But the more effort you can put into just making this a show-stopping event, it will pay off. So we've covered food, plan for weather, plan a rain date. Put this in your ads. Or if, like for us, we said rain or shine because we knew most things were inside. This was the date, rain or shine. This is when we're doing it. We would have added in rain date blank on every ad if we weren't able to pull that off, if it would have been raining really hard. So just, if you can do that ahead of time so people know, there will be people who are looking up for things in your sale if you're posting what those things are, and they will add it to their calendars, or they will take a picture or screenshot with their phone, things like that. So keep that information listed. Lastly, the night before the sale, I went in and updated all of the ads with our actual address. I did not update any of these until the night before. I didn't want our address out there that we just had a garage full of all of this stuff sitting there. I didn't want the mental worry that someone was going to pull in looking for something. So I waited until that night. Cleanup. We were so lucky that we did not have a ton of stuff left, but here's how I approached that. I started gathering things into like leftover wood, anything that was easily burnable. I started putting it on the trailer that we could bring it down and have a bonfire later. We had a lot of like outdoor stuff, some painted signs, things that we could just burn and be done with. And then I started a donate section in the garage where I started gathering up and putting like the clothing and things back into bins so they would stay clean. Now they were already put away and ready to donate. The next day is when I had more energy, and I went back through and put some thought into which things were donatable and which things were just trash at this point. There was a few things that like garage stuff that if we didn't even know where to donate it. So we really kept it down to just a couple garbage bags full of stuff at the end that we're just going to have to trash. The other thing is we were able to recycle some things. Some of the glass things I just broke and put in our recycling bin. My husband's able to bring some things to a steel dumpster where it can be recycled. So we did some of that with some of our old fencing and things we had in the sale that didn't sell. And some old bolts and kind of hinges and stuff like that will go to that. So that's what we did. That's how we divided it up. We live in kind of a homesteady sort of vibe type of place. So our things in our sale are probably different than what you have in yours. But besides a lawnmower for $650, we had a 4-wheeler, we had lots of tools. There wasn't a ton of really expensive things. Many things were $50 or under, and they just added up. And so we also were all in. We had gotten the offer on our house a few days before the sale took place. And so we just went through the entire house, then realizing we did not need to set up our house for viewing anymore or to take pictures for staging, things like that. And so we took the clocks off the walls. We took every dresser, everything extra we could, and put it in the sale. All we have left in our home right now is things like this armoire that my sister's taking or this plant that my daughter's taking. You can see spots on the wall behind me here where I'm going to have to mud and just fix the paint where there was some artwork. And so we've just kept things really simple. Our bed is going to our daughter's place. There isn't a lot left. Our kitchen, I went through our cabinets, and any pots and pans and things like that that I could get rid of went in the sale. So that's what worked for us. For pricing, I always try to do, if it's used, I try to do 10, 20% or 10 or 15% of what the cost is. But I genuinely believe things are different nowadays. There were some things that I knew there would be a demand on and that people would pay $5 for because it's something people know and they use. I wasn't having to sell the item, and they know it's going to be $20, $25 in the store. So they'd be willing to pay $5 for it. Other things, it didn't matter if it cost $30 new. They don't know what it is. They don't care. So there were some things like that I had to price for like $2, maybe $3. I just wanted it to move. Lastly, I'll just say there was also some jewelry, some earrings, some things that didn't sell that I literally just bound up and I'm selling it or sent it into like a sell your gold place. And we'll just see if I get anything for it. I thought as a last resort, I did sell a lot of jewelry this way. Some also on eBay previously. But I'm not taking a lot of jewelry with me. And so this was a last kind of resort to sell the last little bits and pieces, a few earrings where I had lost one of the earrings and I still had the other, things like that. And so we'll see what I get from that. That's obviously not included in this total, and I don't have high hopes. I'm okay with basically anything at this point from that, but it's something, and it does add to the total. If you have any other questions of pricing, questions, ideas, I've heard typically a rule of thumb is 10% of the price. I actually think you can price higher than that on many things. And with clothing, also especially kids clothing, it is so expensive nowadays. If you have name brand clothing, it will be worth your effort to put a little energy into that and have size 3T, 4T, whatever it is, and have them organized and folded nice and clearly labeled, and you can get more for each item. We had adult clothes only, and so $1 made sense for us. But there are so many times I know when you are selling your kids' clothes, especially when they're in great condition, you can definitely get more than just $1 an item for sure. So hopefully that was helpful. Racking through my brain trying to think if there's anything else. Yard tools. We sold shovels, weathered handles for $1 to $2. We had tons of shovels and rakes and things like that, all the way up to 10 $10 or so for the better shovels, post hole diggers, things like that, axes. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'll add in the description if there's anything after this video that I think of that was a really good point that I should have made that I forgot to. But mostly pricing, again, we live in Wisconsin. We're in the Midwest. Pretty modest pricing. People expect to pay, and they value different things here than if we were in the city. And so that is, take it with a grain of salt what I'm saying, but you still can look into areas where you live and see what people are pricing things. Or if you have a few minutes, go to a couple sales and see what things are going for. It'll start to give you a feeling for, what is in every sale. Because sometimes we think our things are really unique, and then we show up and we see it at like 5 other sales, and we realize that all of that decor from the mid 2000s is now being sold and it's not as valuable as what we thought. But there is many things I guarantee you have that you can get good money for and really help you on your next chapter, whether it's traveling abroad, traveling in an RV, or just switching states or moving somewhere else and you're ready to just start clean. I highly encourage you to do it. It is one thing to, I'm actually excited to rebuild at some point. And there is no shortage of stuff in our world. And so I just really trust that when it comes time for us to rebuild again, I will find the things that I need. And I probably will do only 10% of what we had. And just really be intentional with the things that I bring into my home in the future, much more than I was. And so I went in with a sense of, I want someone to use this. I'm going to price it so it sells. Not a sense of fear or worry that I'll never get this stuff back. I had none of that. I'm really excited. I got to use it already. It's had a great life with me. I'm glad to see other people get to use stuff. So ask any questions if you have them. I hope that was helpful. Make sure to watch the other video all about our actual moving sale where I show you what we sold. You can kind of get a feel for it there. But I hope that you have a wonderful sale and you can make the most money possible to set you up on your next adventure. Thank you so much for watching.